For the past 40 years, Eddie Stobart's iconic trucks have been clocking up the miles. Their 4,000 drivers cover the distance round the Earth 24 times a day. Making deliveries with military precision, no job is too extreme.
Everything's got a deadline.
We're struggling to get there. Pressure's on.
Having conquered the roads, they're on track for major expansion of their rail division. And they've lofty ambitions for newly acquired London Southend Airport.
It's the full package, road, rail, sea and air.
But the lifeblood of the business remains trucking.
I'm wheel spinning all over the place.
Just turned into the worst run ever.
Another day, another mile.
If anyone can do it,
I don't like failing.
the truckers can.
Rocking and rolling, eh?
Coming up, Biomass driver Tim Fox finds himself in a bit of a squeeze.
Nice. Right, that's tight.
It's a race against time for the Stobart Rail team.
Big bastard, come on.
And rookie trucker Paul Russell's in at the deep end.
These are the worst driving conditions I've ever been out in.
The Stobart fleet travels over 200 million miles every year. Time is money for the haulage giants, so to stay on track they employ over 100 planners to religiously plot every route and monitor every drop their truckers make.
The planners, the brains and the drivers, the muscle. They need us, we need them.
But they don't always quite see eye to eye.
And we're always at loggerheads, basically. I personally think that when you become a planner, you have a lobotomy, but...
One man's on a mission to unite the warring factions.
I think if they understood each other's jobs a bit more, there might be a few less arguments.
24-year-old Paul Russell has worked as a planner at the Appleton depot for 4 years.
11209844.
Not content with sitting behind a desk, the ambitious planner recently paid a whopping £4,500 to put himself through his full HGV licence test, all with one thing in mind.
The relationship between a planner and a driver can be difficult. That was one of my main reasons for doing my HGV licence, just to understand the problems that they encounter on a daily basis.
Paul knows firsthand the tension that exists between drivers and planners.
Every phone call you get, which can be up to 20 an hour, is a problem that you need to spend time sorting out. Your drivers never phone you up to tell you everything's going OK.
Some drivers can spend on average 5 days and nights on the road at a time. It's known as tramping. So Paul's asked his boss, Chris Thompson, to plan him a 2-day tramper run to see what life is actually like on the open road.
I don't think Chris will stitch me up. I'd like to think he wouldn't, but I do want a challenge, but we'll see what he's got in store for me.
But Chris has other ideas.
He has asked for if he can go somewhere like Northampton. I know he's got a relative there, but I'm going to send him complete opposite direction. So basically we sent him up to Scotland, 2 drops.
For Paul, discovering how the other half lives means the pressure will be on. He'll have his work cut out. He just doesn't know it yet.
Morning.
Morning, Paul, how are we doing?
Not bad. Where are we going?
2 drops Livingston.
Where's the one place I said? Oh. I've never been to Scotland.
Paul heads across the yard to collect his loaded truck for the mammoth journey north.
I did say I wanted a challenge, so that's exactly what I've got.
Paul's truck is one of over 200 that get loaded at the Warrington depot per week. Today his cargo includes 19 pallets of pharmaceuticals and 3 pallets of coffee, ready for his first ever multi-drop tramping run. With his checks complete, Paul takes charge of what will now be his home for the next 2 days.
Never realised how small they are.
On a journey of this magnitude, virgin tramper Paul needs to have all his bases covered and make sure he's prepared for every eventuality the road will throw at him.
I've got my map, which I'm going to need, but I've also invested in a brand new sat-nav. Hopefully I won't need it.
But there's already a problem.
Oh no, I forgot the lead. I forgot the thingy. I forgot the lead. Oh no. Do you know the cigarette lighter thingy? I think I forgot that. Right, I think that's a US. Ah, there we go.
With his navigation panic over, Paul hits the road on his self-imposed tramper trial to Scotland to see if he can make the grade.
I'll give it my best shot.
Leaving Appleton Depot in Warrington, Paul will travel 207 miles to Bells Hill in Scotland, where he'll deliver his first load, before travelling 24 miles onto Livingston near Edinburgh to drop his second load. After that, he'll travel 108 miles to overnight at the Stobart Carlisle Depot. The next day, he'll reload before the 120-mile journey back to Warrington. Paul's hopes are high for his marathon 466-mile round trip.
If I get a better understanding of what trampers have to deal with, I'll be able to sort of approach and solve the problems that they put in front of me in a more impartial manner.
But only 1.5 hours into his journey, and the reality of life on the road hits Paul hard. He heads straight into a bank of vicious crosswinds on his way through Penrith.
It's really pulling on the trailer. I can feel the wind's really putting a lot of pressure on the trailer, just having to correct the steering wheel every couple of seconds now.
He's forced to slow down as the turbulence hammers the fully loaded trailer on all sides.
If the trailer starts fishtailing, it's a bit uncomfortable, but...
Things quickly turn from bad to worse.
The wind's just really bad here, and it's raining as well, quite heavily. Just fighting it a bit.
One small mistake in these treacherous conditions by the Virgin trucker, and Paul's tramper adventure could turn into a disaster.
These are the worst driving conditions I've ever been out in.
Find out later if he makes it to Scotland. Coming up, Biomass driver Tim Fox goes head-to-head with the traffic dodgers.
It's just pig ignorance, 200 yards. They're still going to go for it. Freaking.
And Paul Russell's rookie tramper run starts to unravel.
I'm cold, I'm hungry, I'm tired, and I don't know where I'm going.
Stobart have trucks rolling 7 days a week, delivering the goods that help keep the UK running. Helping the pounds roll in is their ever-expanding Biomass division, who pride themselves on being a lean, green, money-making machine. These jobs can be dirty, dusty, stinky and wet. Yet whatever the load, the boys with the white trailers get stuck in.
Jobs are good, spot on.
But dirty work is no excuse for a filthy truck. And Tim Fox is a driver who takes the mantra more seriously than most.
Oh, it's just nasty. Bloody stinks, it's horrible.
He's a Biomass driver who's more than willing to get his hands dirty, but there's just one downside.
That's horrible smell you can smell. That's not me, that's that last load I had in.
43-year-old Tim Fox has been a trucker for 25 years and has been delivering Biomass for 3. It's something he loves.
It's hard work, very hard work, but it's still a fantastic job. Yeah, it's in the blood.
But before Tim goes anywhere today, he starts the day off by giving his pride and joy, his truck called Sarah Gabriella, a good old scrub and rub.
Yesterday I had a load of, it's called organic waste, and it's the most foul, stinking, horrible, messy stuff. It's just nasty. So I want to get that off.
The truck wash starts its final spit and polish.
If you want, make me want to pee now.
And for Tim, it's worth all the effort.
You can't beat a twinkly wagon.
With his truck sparkling like a brand new toy, he hits the road. Today, Tim is travelling 17 miles from Appleton Depot to Astley near Manchester to pick up 20 tonnes of sawdust. Then he'll travel to Carnforth truck stop and park up overnight with his load, before travelling the next day to a cattle farm in Plumpton in Penrith to drop his sawdust. Then it's another 25-mile drive to Carlisle to pick up more sawdust before it's delivered 24 miles away at a farm in Bowscar, Penrith. Only 7 minutes into his journey and he's already in trouble.
Oh.
As the traffic grinds to a standstill, Tim's blood pressure starts to rise.
You can see that the outside lane's shut. They're pulling out from in front of that van and going down that lane, knowing that they can't get down there because it's shut. Yep, another one.
He's a driver that respects the unspoken laws of the road, and it's getting his goat.
It's just Ignorance. There's no excuse at all. It's just pig ignorance, and that's what's causing this.
Things don't look good as the traffic edges forward at an agonising pace.
He should know better. Look at it, 200 yard. They're still got to go for it. Thick as
As Tim's temper threatens to get the better of him, he starts to look for alternative routes.
That's the quickest way. He's got the right idea. Still smiling.
The biomass trucker's hitting a devastating average speed of 0.5 miles an hour.
Oh, see, he's overtaking us again.
"54 painful minutes later, the traffic starts to pick up pace, and Tim sees a green glimmer of hope on the horizon.
Get me through. Don't change, don't change, don't change. There we go.
With the nightmare tailback behind him, he's freewheeling and back on the open road. He completes the rest of his 17-mile journey to the sawdust yard, the hour of lost time still on his mind.
Plan now is to get in here, get this load on, and get out as quick as I can.
Tim swings into the recycling plant to pick up his load of sawdust and is confronted with apocalyptic scenes.
Plan is to drive round to the left though without hitting anything.
He has the narrowest of entrances to contend with, and an even trickier reverse.
Some of these places are horrible, horrendous places to get in and out of. Tight, 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 tight.
But the tightness isn't Tim's only worry.
The front of the trailer coming into the mirror. Well, that's all I can see now. I can't see where the wheels are on that side. And you've got lumps of wood sticking out that can cause damage.
Using all his 25 years driving knowledge, Tim makes the tricky turn and reverse.
Slowly, slowly, catch your monkey. There we go.
The bucket drivers get to work straight away loading 20 tons of sawdust, but it's a dusty affair, and Tim's not impressed.
I knew it was going to happen.
The dumper truck makes short work of loading the 20 tons of sawdust and a right old mess of Tim's twinkly trailer.
Look, a bloody great big dumper truck like that, and you've got a fat little horn. It sounds like a Citroen 2CV or something.
Tim sets to work strapping the load, unaware that there's a small surprise waiting for him.
Nature of the job. A lot of the lads think we have a nice, easy, clean job. They don't actually see some of the you have to work with.
Tim finishes strapping his load and heads off 54 minutes behind schedule. The earlier delays have taken their toll, and he's in danger of running out of his legal driving hours. So he'll have to park up 50 miles earlier than anticipated.
We're looking at Bolton services, Bolton West services at the M61. It's nowhere near as far as I want it to be, but it's all I can do.
And Tim's well aware of the penalties for pushing the boundaries of his driving hours.
5 minutes can put you over your time. You go over your time, you're liable for prosecution. They're doing it necessary, they will take my licence off me.
Tim reluctantly parks up at Bolton Services with just 4 minutes driving time left on the clock, knowing that he'll have to make up the lost time tomorrow. Find out later how he gets on. "24-year-old planner Paul Russell has temporarily swapped his desk job at Stobart for a tramper's life on the open road, in a bid to close the divide between drivers and planners.
If I get a better understanding of what trampers have to deal with, I'll be able to sort of approach and solve the problems that they put in front of me in a more impartial manner.
But with limited HGV driving hours under his belt, rookie Paul is really starting to feel the strain. Just 90 miles into his 466-mile marathon round trip to Scotland, he's slap bang in the middle of stormy weather.
These are the worst driving conditions I've ever been out in.
It's a true test of Paul's driving skills.
Really, really bad weather. It's raining heavily, can't see very far in front.
But after a tense 34 miles, finally the weather breaks and Paul can turn his attention to the job in hand, his first delivery.
Not gone as fast as I wanted to, so I think we're running about an hour late.
After being buffeted by wind and rain for most of his 207-mile journey from Warrington, Paul finally arrives at Bells Hill in Scotland and makes his first drop. A devastating 60 minutes behind schedule. But the delays don't stop there. He's held in an offload queue. And all he can do is sit and wait. After his hold-up, Paul's finally dropped his load and back on the road. But his day is fast unravelling.
They kept me in there for over 2 hours. I'm now late for my second drop. Apart from that, I'm cold, I'm hungry, I'm tired, and I don't know where I'm going.
It's 4:34 p.m. He's behind schedule and still has a second drop 24 miles east in Livingston near Edinburgh. With the clock ticking, things are hotting up for Paul.
I've never been under this sort of pressure before. I've got no idea where I'm going. I can't even tell you what motorway that was.
Take the exit.
Turn
left.
Entirely dependent on the sat-nav.
Take the exit.
Yeah, this is something else.
Paul is running the risk of missing his delivery slot. If he can't get there in the next 24 minutes, the day could end in disaster.
It's in my best interest just to get it there as quickly as possible. Otherwise, they may ask us to take it all the way back to Warrington, which I'm hoping they won't, because that'll be a massive blow.
Experiencing the harsh reality of the deadlines truckers deal with on a daily basis, the rookie tramper is feeling the heat.
Right, I've just spotted a sign for a low bridge, which I'm slightly concerned about. I'm hoping I've not taken the wrong exit. I don't think I have, but
Ahead, bear right.
it says it's going to take 4 minutes to get there. It's gone up to 5 now, so.
After 300 yards, bear right.
With his deadline fast approaching and struggling with his sat-nav, Paul fears the worst as he cruises onto an industrial estate, his inexperience taking hold.
I don't know if this is the right place.
He blindly drives into the unknown, squeezing through a tight entrance and hoping for the best.
Just go and check if we're in the right place. Is this semi-chem, mate? Is it?
To Paul's relief, the patient staff at his second drop-off have waited for his arrival, and he'll be getting tipped tonight. They pull out all the stops to get Paul unloaded quickly.
Right, I think we're going to Carlisle.
But as Paul heads for the overnight safety of the Carlisle depot, he gets the call that all trampers dread. A late change.
Hello?
Hello, Paul.
Are you okay?
You changed your job in the morning, mate.
Say it again?
You changed your job in the morning. You now collect at Highland Springs and Blackford.
You're joking?
No, I need you to get yourself parked up in around the area there so you can collect that there in the morning.
But I'm on my way to Carlisle.
Yeah, I need you to stop, mate, and park up as soon as you can.
You're winding me up, aren't you?
I'm not, mate. I'm not, honestly. I wish you was.
This is a punch in the gut for Paul.
He's changed my work. I'm not going to Carlisle now.
This is the one thing planner Paul didn't plan on.
It is annoying because I had it all planned out, but that's changed things drastically. I've never slept in a wagon, so yeah, this is where the learning curve begins, really.
Instead of heading south into England, he's now heading back north to the nearest services. As he pulls in, not knowing where he is or what is available to him, he's not a happy tramper.
I'm wet, I'm tired, I'm hungry, and I've had enough.
He heads straight to the showers, hoping to revive his flagging enthusiasm. 20 minutes and a few soap suds later, he's learning more harsh lessons about life on the road.
Just had a shower there and just mortified about the standard of the cleanliness of it all, really.
The idea of a night away from home in a Stobart truck may appeal to some, but the reality of it is beginning to hit Paul hard.
Times like this, you realise how small the cab actually is. Just doesn't even come close to home, this. It's looks uncomfortable already, but I'll give it a shot. There we go, that's my bed for the night.
Paul settles down for his gourmet meal.
I'm not tired, I'm almost beyond hunger now, but...
Find out later if Paul survives his baptism of fire. Coming up, Biomass driver Tim Fox finds himself in a bit of a squeeze.
Christ, right, that's tight.
And it's a race against time for the Stobart Rail team.
Big bastard, come on!
Since its conception in 2010, the Stobart Biomass division has been expanding at an eye-watering rate, supplying almost 500,000 tonnes of recycled material across the UK and Europe. And they plan to double this figure by 2012. Tim Fox has been there since it began, delivering loads all over the country. And yesterday he picked up 20 tonnes of sawdust. But an hour's delay forced him to park up overnight with his load at Bolton Services.
Another day, another dollar.
Today, Tim has an 89-mile journey to a cattle farm in Plumpton, Penrith, where his cargo will be offloaded and used for cow bedding. Then it's another 25-mile journey to pick up sawdust in Carlisle and deliver it 24 miles away at a farm in Bowscar, Penrith.
I'll go up and try and find this farm in the lovely village of Plumpton. You, Barnum and Green, up at Dibble and Grub. It sounds like.
Tim double-checks his directions for the run.
Get my laptop out.
After nearly an hour's delay yesterday, he can't afford any more today, but his directions are somewhat basic.
Up the hill, the road levels, and bends to the right, up another hill, past some houses, up another hill, then down a big dip, and as soon as you come out the dip, turn left. That's my address, that's the farm.
Tim sparks his 440 brake horsepower beast into gear and heads off into the unknown in search of the farm. And as Tim hits the early morning motorway, and with clear traffic, for once, he hasn't a care in the world.
It's the kind of driving you like, just nice and happy, cruise control on, truck settled down, nice home, no rattles, no bangs, everything sounds right. This is when job's good.
But the early morning bliss is just about to be put to the test as he calls the owner of the farm he's searching for.
Hello, is that Mr. Atkinson? Hi, it's Tim, the Stobart driver. I'm away with a load of bedding for you.
But there's a problem.
Between two trees.
Directions are getting confusing.
Right. Between two, that's nice, sounds good that, between two trees. What that means, I don't know.
Tim decides to take the plunge, taking a hard right turn down a narrow lane and hopes for the best.
I hope this is the turn. What you don't want to do is turn up or up. Yo, there's a speed equal over there then, that coach. Nice on a bike.
With every turn of the wheel, Tim becomes increasingly worried.
Uphill, it levels out, well that were an hill.
With no obvious turning point for his truck, his directions need to be spot on.
Road bends to the right. That's got to be that one.
Just as the biomass man is wondering if he's taken a wrong turn...
Yeah, two trees, he said two trees.
Navigation proves to be the least of Tim's worries as he arrives at the farm.
Christ, right, that's tight.
Tim is confronted by a minuscule entrance. Solid stone walls on each side. An inch either way, and the trailer will be totaled.
You're having a laugh, aren't you? Oh.
Tim struggles to get his bearings.
They fit a quart into a pint pot here. Jesus.
He's a hair's breadth from disaster. And there's a real danger of becoming wedged.
Oh, well, this isn't fun. I'm on fire. I hope this is the right entrance.
Much to Tim's relief, he's made it.
He said it would tight, but I wasn't expecting that.
But he has no time to relax, as staring him in the face is problem number 2, a dreaded soft verge.
If you put a wheel into that, the whole lot, especially on that side, on the near side, because it slopes down, that can give way, well, you turn the truck over.
Only metres away from his destination, and the pressure's really on. Finally, Tim's passed the soft verge, and for this cool customer, it's all in a day's work.
This is the biomass job. You get a lot of farm work. Flies.
Tim pulls into the yard, and after getting directions of where to drop his load, he finds time to take a moment out and enjoy the country air.
That's a country smell, that. Get in your lungs. That'll be cow, that. Them things, stinking things over there.
Breakover for animal lover Tim. He starts to back his 20-ton load into the bunker.
That is going in. Lovely. In, out, and we're going to shake it all about now.
Tim sets his mechanical walking floor into action. It automatically slides and pushes the sawdust from his truck in an impressive 7 minutes.
Most important tool in the wagon. Well, no, the driver's the most important tool. That's the second most important tool.
After prizing the rest of the sawdust from the trailer, Tim sweeps up and closes the roof. Then makes his way over to get his paperwork signed. But he's suspicious of the locals.
You see, how can you trust that? Look at that look in its eye. Give him half a chance that it'd savage you and have your leg off. Ooh, look, I don't like them damn things. Get away from me.
Tim reverses from the yard and makes his way to his next pickup with one final thought.
Next time you have your steak or your glass of milk, it tastes a bit woody. That's why.
After a tight entrance, soft verge and scary locals, it's another job well done. And all courtesy of Stobart's biomass maestro, Tim Fox. Since their humble beginnings in the 1960s, Stobart have spread their wings far and wide. Not content with being one of the most recognisable trucking firms in the UK, they're fast expanding their air and rail empires too. Stobart Rail has existed since 2006 and now boasts its own station, freight service and maintenance teams. The man charged with keeping maintenance jobs on track is Operations Director Andy Richardson. 46-year-old Andy has been with Stobart Rail since the beginning.
We come in after the last train's gone, do our works, then go on before the trains start running again the next morning. Most of the time, the public don't really see what's going on out there.
Andy and his team carry out over 500 operations a year. Tonight, they're in the northeast of England near Scunthorpe, replacing a 75-metre stretch of railway ballast at a level crossing in Ulsby. The ballast that's being replaced tonight are small limestone rocks that cushion and support the track whilst helping with drainage.
A lot of work and a lot of time and effort and planning goes into this work here.
The job will take place in the dead of night over a 12-hour period with a team of 25 men and one very special piece of kit, the humongous Gopher. This mega machine skillfully removes old ballast, all without disturbing the existing rail line. It's 11 p.m. The last train has departed, and Andy and his team have just got the green light.
There's been a slight delay. It's simply because they've been taking possession of the line. It's quite complicated around here. They've got quite a few lines to block and stuff like that.
Already an hour behind schedule, and the pressure is on to quickly get the 17-ton Gopher unloaded.
It is slow to get the Gopher onto the track, but, you know, it needs to be that way. It's got to be precise.
One crew member is showing greater interest in the Gopher than most.
It's my first time on site with the Gopher after my training last week.
29-year-old Richard Errington has been a maintenance engineer for Stobart Rail for 3 years. Tonight, he'll be on virgin territory. He's operating the Gopher.
Obviously, it's a little bit daunting. Could be quite tough tonight.
For first-timer Richard, his challenging shift is about to begin. He must offload the Gopher in front of 25 other crew members.
So I feel a little bit pressure with the lads standing around tonight. They'll be looking for anything I do wrong.
But Richard has only one man he needs to impress, his trainer, Tony.
He's definitely in the deep end. He is.
44-year-old Tony Morn has been working for Stobart Rail for 12 years. He's one of just 5 fully trained Gopher drivers and the only person in the UK qualified to train new drivers.
First time he's had all of the reins in anger, in the darkness. There's quite a little bit of pressure on, so it'll be interesting to see how he comes on tonight, really. See what he thinks. I might be out of a job, mightn't I?
Rookie Richard sets the 11.6-metre Gopher into motion. His challenge, to reverse the 17-ton beast onto the train track. Under the watchful eye of his tutor, he inches the Gopher back onto the rail. With millimetres between success and failure, the pressure is really on. As the Gopher's wheels hit the rail track bang on target, Richard's made it.
It all went very, very well, and hopefully we can start work shortly.
The rest of the crew now pitch in to align and lock the mega machine onto the rail. Operations Director Andy is clearly impressed with the novice.
That's about as good as you can get.
Challenge 1 successfully over, a relieved Richard drives the Gopher down the rail tracks to start his maiden dig. But before the virgin driver can get stuck in, he's completely stopped in his tracks.
I hope that doesn't bloody... Is it running that way?
A major hazard has been unearthed.
Well, I found a cable that comes out of the trough in and under the stone, and the ballast, we're hoping it doesn't go right through to the far side.
This is bad news for the crew. If the cable is live, it's game over.
The network rail guys are here. They're going to see if it's a live cable or it's a disused one or something like that.
Work quickly commences on tracing the cable and establishing whether tonight's vital repairs can continue. All a disconcerted Richard can do is watch and wait as a scanner determines if it's live or not.
We're picking it up over here with the CAT scanner, but it could just be like a snake. It could be all over the place under the ballast, so we're just going to have to excavate it all out with shovels and just see where it's at. We've got to be absolutely positive that it is a redundant cable, a dead cable.
It's a race against time.
Come on. Hell.
It's all hands on deck as precious time starts to slip away.
Big bastard, come on.
Finally, after an exhausting 20 minutes of hard digging,
the guys have found the cable now, and it's basically about a metre and a half of dead cable coming out the troughing, so that's a bit of a result anyway, so that's one good thing out the way.
they're almost 2 hours behind schedule, and the anxious young Gopher operator hasn't even started yet.
It's very, very difficult, quite dangerous, so it's quite a critical point in coming up to it.
Find out later if Richard and the rail crew get back on track in time. Trampers are on the road on average 5 days a week, with some international drivers staying away from home for a massive 10 to 12 weeks at a time. Yesterday, rookie tramper Paul Russell left his planner desk in Warrington behind, and last night experienced his first night sleeping as a tramper in Scotland, 231 miles from home.
There we go, that's my bed for the night.
And with Paul's virgin sleep, he's just discovered what challenges they actually go through.
That's the night out done. There was a fridge trailer park next door and it was humming away all night. It was just humming and humming and humming.
And it seems Paul is really missing his creature comforts.
I just find it a bit annoying about the amount of space you've got, really. Just not being able to stretch, really, like this. But it is a bit weird having a seat right next to you, because that's effectively my desk. So it's like sleeping at work.
With no time for complaining, Paul gets himself up, dons the famous green shirt and is straight back out onto the road. No let-up in the tramper experience for this young planner. But that's if he can ever leave the yard. Unbeknownst to Paul, his trailer brake is on, and a fellow Stobart driver has to come to his aid.
Trailer brake on the new trailers, when the air pressure gets below certain pressure, they come on automatically.
Yeah, see?
That was out there.
That's the kind of thing they can't teach you in a classroom, so...
That should be good to go now.
Fantastic. See, you learn something every day, so...
Paul finally hits the road, lesson learnt. And after the late change to his schedule last night, he has a 90-mile journey to Blackford in Perthshire, where he'll pick up 26 pallets of mineral water. Then he'll start the last leg of his journey, a 247-mile trek south back to the safety and familiar surroundings of the Appleton depot. After 16 miles of routine motorway driving, Paul's 44-ton truck and trailer make their way onto country roads.
Nice, pretty village, isn't it?
Paul is once again struggling with his sat-nav. One wrong turn down these roads and it's game over for the monster machine.
It's telling me to go down that street there, but I'm not going to do that.
Turn right.
Turn right up there. It's about to go over there then. The sat-nav was telling me to go over that pretty bridge there, but the bridge would have just collapsed. That's just a prime example of when you need to use your nous as a driver.
Paul's technique pays off as he uses good old-fashioned road signs to find his location. After heading to Goods Inn for his paperwork, Paul backs onto the yard. Here, the loading of 26 pallets of mineral water can then begin. Paul gets stuck into his work, unaware a set of beady eyes are watching from afar. And they've spotted a potential mistake.
Just watching that lad over there, and it could do with maybe a couple of more straps on the load just to make sure it's secured properly.
Colin Teddem, a wily Stobart driver of 9 years, makes his way over to Paul.
Are you just a new lad that's just started here, or have you been here a while?
No, I'm a planner. Just doing a couple of days tramping just to see what it's like, just to see what our lads have to put up with, really. So, yeah, just...
What time we've got some of you hitting the roads?
Well, I don't know,
Like.
Colin gets stuck in helping Paul strap his load of water, giving him his second valuable lesson in life on the road as a truck driver.
It's nice to get some hands-on experience, and this will probably never leave me now.
While Paul continues strapping the load, Colin has his own theory about why the friction between planners and drivers is getting worse.
I mean, years ago, it used to be always ex-drivers would proceed up the ladder. But now, because of the way the young ones are coming from university and everything, they're going straight in on the computer systems. So it's sort of lacking in that hands-on experience. They don't appreciate what you're doing and how hectic things can be.
With the load complete, there's one final piece of advice from Colin.
Tuck them up the back, pull it in, and then it's in tight. They get this waving unprofessional look.
Nothing worse than that, is there?
No.
Well, thanks very much for your help.
As the two Stobart drivers say their goodbyes, Paul hits the road for his mammoth 247-mile journey back to Appleton Depot and the familiarity of his desk.
It really has been a challenge, and it's not an easy job and it's not an easy lifestyle, so I think I'm just going to listen to them a bit more and just help them as much as I can, really, from now on.
Luckily for the young planner, it's a smooth journey home. 5 hours, 34 minutes, and a 247-mile journey later, Paul arrives back at the Appleton depot.
Home sweet home. Relieved, to be honest with you. It's been a long 2 days.
As he pulls into the yard and drags his weary body from what has been his home for the past 2 days, his tramper trial is finally over.
In the future, I'm just going to listen so much more to the driver, just listen to the problems, listen to what they're telling me and just help in any way I can.
Lessons learnt, a greater respect for drivers gained, Paul has just one thing left to do. Reacquaint himself with his beloved desk.
Back where I belong.
Coming up, the Stobart Rail team finally released the mighty Gopher. But has the operation reached the end of the line?
Now what we're going to do? This is the worst case scenario for Richard tonight, like. Just don't move your cutter bar.
It's 2:15 a.m. in Ulsby near Scunthorpe. A 25-strong rail maintenance crew have just 12 hours to replace a 75-metre stretch of ageing railway ballast using a mega machine called the Gopher.
A lot of work and a lot of time and effort and planning goes into this work here.
Unexpected problems have put the work 2 hours behind schedule.
Come on, big bastard, come on.
After the nail-biting delays, it's now 29-year-old Richard Errington's big moment. His first night in charge of operating the Gopher.
Could be quite tough tonight.
The £250,000 Gopher is the jewel of the rail maintenance machinery fleet. Weighing in at 17 tonnes, it fixes onto the railway line exactly like a train. It's the only machine in the country specifically designed to cut ballast from under the line without removing the track. A 3.6 metre rotational cutting arm removes the ballast. It's then scooped up by a 2.7 metre wheel of steel and deposited onto a 5 metre conveyor belt that transports it into the waiting train ballast containers. With the Gopher ready and waiting, the empty train ballast containers take up their position next to the mega machine.
It's very, very difficult and quite dangerous, so it's quite a critical point that we're coming up to.
And that's an understatement. Richard tentatively lowers the wheel and starts up the cutting arm. He can't afford any slip-ups. And he's in.
He's doing all right. He's definitely after my job.
But with the Gopher now in full flow, it becomes clear to Andy the proximity of the train container could cause a problem.
As you can see down there, there's very little clearance between the edge of the Gopher and actually the wagon of the train here.
As Richard strives on, Tony keeps a close eye on his pupil.
What you need to be looking at is just going on the edge of that sleeper, which is back there, which is grand there. You just click out of it and whoo.
But just 12 metres into the 75-metre dig, things take a turn for the worse.
It's a bit tight at the moment. We're running out a bit of room.
The Gopher cutting arm edges ever closer to a sleeper. With millimetres to spare, it's make or break time.
It's definitely difficult for the lad tonight, like.
But despite his best efforts, disaster strikes.
Now what we're going to do? Just don't move the cutter bar. Basically what's happened, the cutter bar's catching the sleeper here. We daren't continue and try and get it underneath it because it would probably rip the bottom out of the sleeper, so we don't want to do that. If Tony had been driving it, we wouldn't have had this problem.
Work on the line grinds to a halt as the damage to the sleeper is inspected.
This is the worst case scenario for Richard tonight, like.
His colleagues might be fretting, but Richard seems to be keeping a level head.
Never know what you're going to get until you get to the site. Start digging. The lads might take the a bit, but just water off a duck's back as usual.
With the container train being too close to Richard's Gopher, it's forcing the cutting arm into the sleeper. The decision is made to reverse the containers 20 metres back down the track so that the cutting arm can be safely removed from under the sleeper without any further damage.
He can shove his wheel out further now since the train's moved back, and which results in him being able to drop his blade down a bit further, so hopefully then now we can get under that sleeper that we were catching before.
The cutting arm is tentatively removed. If it does any more damage, the whole line could be out of action, causing chaos for Network Rail.
You need to gradually move it out. You can't... that's it.
Richard proves his credentials, removing the cutting arm safely. After further inspection, and with only cosmetic damage found to the sleeper, the operation can continue.
Normal service has resumed for now, anyway.
They're 5 hours into the 12-hour operation, and so far only 36 metres of track has been completed. Now it's all eyes on the clock as the crew dig in. The overnight race against time hots up. 4 hours, 73 metres and a sunrise later, Richard is coming to the end of his first Gopher shift, still under the watchful eye of Tony.
You need to gradually move it out. You can't... that's it.
After removing over 200 tonnes of ballast in the last 12 hours, the rest of the crew finish compacting the replacement limestone as the Gopher finally backs off of the track. It's job over for rookie Richard and his 17-tonne mean machine.
How do you think that went?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah? Had a good night?
Yeah. Obviously, going across a few problems. But...
Lots of problems. Take my hat off to him. He did really well, especially on his first mentoringship. If he carries on like that, it's nothing but high hopes for him, really. Brilliant.
Obviously, the lads won't let me live it down the fact that I caught a sleeper on my first time out, but never mind.
After a gruelling 12-hour shift, the rail team completed the ballast replacement on time. The first train went over the new 75-metre section of track without a blip the following day. Next week on Eddie Stobart Trucks and Trailers.
It's like the M25, only with 4 trucks.
Mark has the drop-off from hell.
That's it, abandon it.
One Stobart driver swaps his green truck for a girly pink one.
I take a bit of flack off other drivers because I've got a pink horse on my curtain sider.
And a spotter's dreams come true.
Come on in, Tinker.
Best day of my life.